gonna spend a little bit of time in the farm. Vic had a cool idea. He wanted to see if we could make a wave on our 750 gallon tank. I'm not sure if we can do it. I don't know if there's enough pump, but we're sure gonna try. So let's go inside and see if we can make it happen. All right, so we're here in the farm today. We're gonna work around a little bit of a noise. These guys got a cut and we can't stop them from doing that. Today we're gonna be talking a little bit about water movement, and more specifically, creating a wave. I think that's kind of a cool topic. It's functional in some settings, not really functional in most, but it's cool to diversify the type of flow that you're going to give your aquarium. So in this case, I thought we'd kind of go through the whole identifying your pumps and grouping them so that they function together, and then showing you how to find that actual frequency of wave. I think it's a cool topic. We're here in the aquaculture side of our farm, and this is what we call the 11750. JW and Jesus pretty much man these aquariums on this side. It's a complete reef. I mean, you see there's frags here, so it's a very functional scape. So this tank is 8 feet long. There's 4 MP60s on it, so it's going to be a little bit tricky. I'm not sure if it's enough pump to actually get the wave like we're looking for. And we only have on this far side about 3/4 of an inch here and 3/4 of an inch there of water level that can actually bob up and down. There's 2 MP60s on this side. One's real low, one's about 6 inches from the surface of the water. And on the other side, there's one that's about 8 inches from the surface of the water and one that's about 6 inches. That poses a little bit of a problem when we're trying to create a wave, because the lower the pump is in the aquarium, actually it's gonna create a better force of water movement. The higher it is, the more it obstructs the surface. So it gives you this like really ripply effect. I'm not gonna move them for the purpose of this video. I wanna keep the tank as current format as it is, because I don't really wanna disrupt too much stuff. The tank is doing good. If I go moving power heads around, then I gotta re-anchor them. I gotta make sure that they're not beating up the coral. They're happy the way that they are, so we're gonna try to work around it. This is gonna be a little bit tricky to capture, so there's gonna be some of it that's gonna be screen recording from my phone, as well as looking at some of the visual cues here in the tank. Okay, so you can see here we have 4 MP60s. They're not labeled properly, but maybe we'll get to that at some point. And you can see they're making about 7,000 gallons per hour at peak. So in order to properly set up a wave, if you've got multiple pumps, you have to go into the edit setting, and then you're gonna see here, I've got this selected. This is blue and it's set on a short pulse. And you can see here, if I just change the interval, they're at 100%. And this is what we're gonna actually use to create that pulse. This doesn't have anything to do with the other pump, so let's go back really quick. Now, if I select one of these other ones, you're gonna see, if I go into the edit setting, what I've done is I've carried this child into the graph, and it's gonna ask me which one I want to be the parent. So that it's easier, I'll go ahead and I'll change this name to number 1. I'll go back to the other 3, select the next one. So in order to make them all function together, you actually have to select child and drag it over. And I'm gonna select which one's the parent, and it says number 1. Here, I'm going to sync them. So that's what these selections are. I want them synced together, okay, for the entire day. And I'm gonna have it at 100% just like the other ones. Done, save. Go to the next one. Same thing, select child. Once you've selected child, select which one's the parent. Go to 100%. And look, these are just time blocks throughout the course of the day. So let's say you only want this to be for an hour. You want it to go into a full wave for an hour. You can drop this you can drop this child section like this in and say, well, I'm 7:55 to 8:55 is when I want that. Select 100%, sync, Now, only for that 1 hour, it's going to be paired with the parent. Save. And then I've got to go to the third one and make sure that I have this same selection. So in this case, I did all day long. Sync, 100%. Save. I've got all three doing the same thing. Now I go back to the parent. And now's the tricky part. I have to find out what the frequency, I mean, I've always called it resonant frequency. I believe that's the proper terminology. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to find the pulse length interval that we're getting from these power heads in order to slam water down to this side of the tank. And then as it moves its way back, we catch it again with another force, okay? It's kind of like if you take, when you were kids and you jumped up and down in the pool and, you know, you kind of do this seesaw action and then you get the wave in the pool to go back and forth like that. It's the same thing. So if I'm like pushing down on this side, it's gonna go up over there, which is the concept, because we're taking water from this space and we're throwing it over there. So we would expect that this water level is actually gonna drop here. So obviously equal and opposite reaction. So that's gonna happen on the other side, but we have to time it right so that it actually starts to move up and down. And I played around with this a little bit before we started recording the video. So I wanted to make sure that I kind of had an idea of what zone we were gonna be in. On the parent, I'm gonna start at 1.3, okay? Go save. What we're gonna watch for is we're gonna watch this little section right here on the back side of the tank, right above the power head. We're looking at this side of the tank because it's the most evident. Like I said before, the power head that's the lowest, furthest away from the surface of the water, is actually doing less obstructing than this power head above it is. And because those ones on the other side are elevated because of the corals that are direct in front of the power head, they're creating a little bit of agitation there at the surface. So it's kind of doing this gyrating instead of doing a full motion. If you have a single power head, which we're gonna actually go over in a little bit, if you have a single power head that's strong enough to do this, it's way, way easier. So I gotta give it a minute to kind of seek its level. And you can see it's all bobbing. It's really not doing anything. It's coming back at different intervals as this is kind of coming back across this way. So we can tell right now that it's not actually proper. If we thought about the whole thing as a whole and we said we want this to move and this to move, it should be kind of going in this fashion, right? And you can almost kind of guess what that motion's supposed to look like based on the length of the aquarium, because water can't just go like this. So we know that it's probably not right. So I'm gonna go up just a little bit. I'm at 1.4 now. Save that. Let's see what that does. And like I said, it's a big tank, so it's gonna take a couple minutes in order to really find its rhythm.
A few moments later.
This tank is not the best tank to do this visual representation on because, like I said, there's a couple variables that we're fighting. One, the power heads aren't elevated the same on both sides. Two, the tank is 8 feet long, so it's not as dramatic as if it was 4 feet long. And then the third thing really is these 4 MP60s are not nearly enough to do this the right way. So we're actually gonna jump away from here and we're gonna go over to Vic's tank, which is gonna be the easiest tank to show this on. But I wanted to show you really quick. I was able to find the frequency that I was looking for this aquarium as good as it's gonna possibly get. So I've got it set at 100% all 4 pumps. I've got it set at 1 second and 360 milliseconds. And this is the best that we get. We get a little bit of a vortex down here on this furthest corner, and it bobbles every so slightly just up to that silicone line. And it's not very dramatic, but the same thing on the other side. It's a little bit stronger. You can watch right at the teeth on the overflow. It goes up about 3/8 of an inch, maybe more, maybe 5/8. And then it falls down to the teeth. And I don't know, it may be possible to do like 380 milliseconds and get a better wave, but it's right in that range, 360, 380. I want to talk a little bit about the wave feature. This is not something that I would consistently run my tank on because it has a couple of negatives to it. More specifically on this tank because it's peninsula. Let's think about that for a minute. The flow is coming all from one side, but that's also where we're asking the filtration to drain from. If I've got a pulse, and let's say right now, for lack of better terms, it's like 1.3 seconds each pulse. What's actually happening is in the very center of this tank, we've got a single zone. Now, let's say the water's doing this. It's not perfectly doing it like I want it to, but it's bobbling back and forth. What's actually happening is if there's dirt on the bottom of this tank, that dirt is doing nothing but hovering left and right, just like this. The idea that your flow is supposed to assist in your filtration, or it's supposed to be the main component that's stirring the tank, elevating it into the water column and allowing your filtration to do its job. Knowing that, if you're assuming that that's the case, this dirt moving on the bottom of the tank back and forth is not actually serving you any purpose at all. On the flip side of the coin, its benefit is if you can do this in an intermediate way, or you can do it at random intervals. Maybe you only do it for an hour of the day. Maybe you do it for 2 hours of the day. Then there's 22 hours of time where the tank is doing something else. And randomizing flow is really super important because maybe this isn't getting the dirt to the drain, but it is stirring up different pockets that wouldn't otherwise get stirred up. And in this case, because the tank is so long, this part of the tank is actually really moving. You can see the ganies up against this overflow. They are kind of wobbling around like this. So maybe it's jarring dirt loose. Maybe it's freeing some of the deposits in different areas of the tank. There's definitely a benefit to it. And it looks cool. If you get the wave really, really well, which we're gonna show you on Vic's tank, if you get the wave really well, it does kind of have a cool, like, I don't know, rhythmic pattern to it that's fun to watch. And the corals will actually do that as well. I think for now, because we're not gonna get a much better wave on this tank with as little power head as we have, that's as good as you're gonna get. Let's go see it on a 4-foot tank.
All right, this one's going to be substantially easier to show and it's going to be more dramatic. So we'll actually get to see that movement on this tank, but we got to pick on Vic first about this glass being dirty. He always busts my chops about my glass being dirty. I don't care. He does. Okay, so he always keeps his tanks on reef crest, which if you look on this controller here, I kind of pulled it around the backside of the stand so that we could actually see it. Reef crest is yellow, and it's just gonna be random lows, random highs throughout the course of the day. Sometimes it goes fast from low to high, and sometimes it goes slow from low to high. It's nice because it's very randomized. In this case, this is a perfect scenario to try to showcase what this is supposed to do, because this power head is pretty low in the tank, so it's not disrupting the surface like I talked about over in the big tank. So here, in order to change this, I have to go and hit the left button, which is mode, and I'm going to change it from yellow, and we're going to go to the blue setting, which is only one click. This is nice because we're doing it in an analog format, so if you don't have it hooked up to Mobius, you can still do this on the controller. So when you turn this dial, this is the intensity, and then if you hit set, now it's going to show the pulse. So dialing it down again, this is setting the interval between the intensities. So in this case, I know a 4-foot tank almost always falls right in the middle here. So I'm actually going to dial this down. I'll go a little bit too low so that you can see what it looks like. You can see that's the pulse. So we'll give it a minute. We'll watch the surface here and see what it does. And it's pretty quick to show the result. So if you watch on the very far end, opposite of the power head, you're gonna see it just kind of wiggles like we were getting out of the 750. So that tells me that it's too short of a pulse. So I'm gonna go a little bit longer. Now I'm just underneath the T here on quiet dry. So that's one further. Give it a couple minutes and see what it does. And look at the polyps on these millies here. They're really moving around. And you can actually see it really good over here on this Donnie. And you can hear, I don't know if the microphone can pick it up, but you can hear a little bit of splash inside of the overflow. That's another downside to having a wave. When you do that, you're actually putting one side of the overflow higher at one point, and then it's low, and then it's high, and then it's low. So you're actually putting more water down in the sump. something to consider. It does affect your auto top off just a little bit, but if you only do this at certain intervals throughout the course of the day, by the end of the day, your top off will eventually level out. Okay, so we know we didn't get a wave yet. It's not falling here very far. So I'm gonna go one more from the T to right beneath the D. And I think that right there will actually do it. There we go. I don't know if you can hear that splash or that drives me nuts. So for this reason, I would never do this, or I would do it when I'm not home for the day. But you can see I get a good 1/2 inch of drop here on this side, right beneath that water box aquarium etch, and then the same on the other side. You can see the algae line there at the surface. Maybe it's a little bit more than 1/2. This is what we're looking for. Look at that Ghani. Watch it wobble left and right. That's a nice wave. And like I said, it's good to look at. It's good to switch it up and give you a different flow pattern throughout the course of the day. But again, you get that dirt that just kind of moves back and forth here in the center, and it doesn't ever really force anything up to the overflow. So not my favorite style, but it really is cool to look at, especially if you've got big meaty corals like acanthos or trachyes, real nice long polyp Ghanies, stuff like that, or Euphilia. Euphilia looks the best in a tank with a wave. Let's say hypothetically that this was a 3-foot tank. That 3-foot tank would have a shorter frequency that we would use. So we would maybe be right around underneath this E, or in between the I and the E. You probably wouldn't be able to run an MP40 at 100% on that frequency either. So you're gonna have to play with it a little bit. I mean, if you want that setting, start with 100%, see if it moves sand, see if it beats your corals up too much, just because you wanna see that exaggerated water movement in order to be able to gauge how much of an interval you need. If you can't run it at 100%, all you gotta do is hit that center button. That's your intensity. Let's say 55%. Hit the center. Now you're setting your frequency again. See how it only goes to that point. That means that that's the intensity that you set. And then, of course, this is the interval. And then if it's strong enough, it'll do it. But you can see how much less the water moves when I dialed it down to 55% like that. It is pretty cool to watch this Ghani move back and forth like that. So if you haven't tried it before, go ahead and give it a shot. It might look neat on your tank, especially like I said, if you've got Ghanis or Euphilia or any big fluffy corals that'll move back and forth like that. Or even if you've got big tabling acros with good polyp extension, that looks really cool like that too. Don't be afraid to try new stuff. I guess that's the point of this video. Maybe in the future we can do different type of product related videos. I don't know. I never really thought about doing this kind of thing, but it is neat to try in different scenarios. So don't be afraid to put your comments in the section below. We like to hear your feedback, and we'll keep trying different videos. You never know what we're gonna do next. Hit the notification bell, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.